Hey, so my name is Albert A. Michelson. The year is 1907, and I was going to tell you about my research project that I conducted. It was actually 20 years ago in 1887. I performed this project with Edward Morley, and the project was actually named after us, which it should have been. But, anyways, we were trying to find in this entire project, the point of it was to find whether ether existed. Now, ether at the time was thought to be this mysterious substance, to say, that pretty much didn't have any qualities except for the fact that it would allow light to pass through it. And the reason that people had thought this was because since sound travels in waves, it goes through air, but it needs air in order to travel through. Otherwise, there's no sound. And so, because of this, since light is in waves, they're like, okay, it needs something to travel through because it can't travel through nothing. And so, we came up with this experiment to be able to figure out if ether actually existed because it was a worldwide thought that ether was real. And so, we did our research in Cleveland, Ohio, in a university that's later come to be known as Case Western Reserve University. And some of the significant things were happening around this time were Nikola Tesla. You might have heard of him. He was producing, or not producing, but he was doing research with X-rays, and they were just like the single tube X-rays, but they would later become patents of his as well. And so, like I said, my partner Edward Morley, he was involved in this project as well because we're partners. But before this, my role was I had done preliminary research on this exact thing, but I had never exactly done this project. And so up to this point, it was not necessarily new to me, but nonetheless, the project was because it had never been done before. So, anyways, the project was we would take a beam of light, and so if ether was existent, the light would be able to change with the rotation of the earth because it's kind of like wind. Whenever you're walking, it's like going past your face, you're actually just moving through it, but you'd be able to tell the difference. So we did this thing where it shoots a beam of light into a beam splitter, and it goes into two mirrors and then projects it back, and then is those beams, once they meet, are sent to a different thing called the receiver that would be able to read these results for us. And so with this, we found out that the beams were the same, like, because if not, they wouldn't have lined up. And because they lined up, showed that there was no difference in them, which was a surprise for us all because the whole world thought that ether existed. And because of this, what we were expecting was that they wouldn't line up because if they didn't, that would show that ether was actually existed, and it would have created where there are waves, it would have canceled out the peaks in them, and because they would have formed a straight line, but they met up exactly, which was completely unexpected. So we're like, okay, everybody, ether doesn't exist, and we publish our results to the world, and a lot of people shut it down, which was pretty surprising because we're like, hey, the whole physics community needs to know this. And so got a little sad, and like there were a bunch more people that followed up with this research. But eventually, you might have heard this dude, it's kind of famous. His name's Albert Einstein. So he published this thing about this idea of special relativity. And whenever he did, he backed us up with the thought of ether doesn't exist because it has, when he was talking about light and this idea that he presented. And so that backed us up. We're like, okay, because that was 1905. And eventually, it's kind of still blows my mind, but just recently this year, I actually received the first Nobel Prize for an American in physics at this time, and it shocked me because I'm still actually shocked by the fact that ether is still not existent. But anyways, so I believe I've explained it well enough for my project because it's kind of hard to talk about it, but without actually showing the project. But it was also 20 years ago. But it still blows my mind, and I still talk to Morley, and we're still blown away that we thought that ether was pretty much just nothingness except the allowed light to pass through it. And because of this, we pretty much disproved it, and it blew our minds. But anyways, I just wanted to thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.